Okay.
This is Patrick with the Outdoorcast. Chris is going to review this Nikon scope for you.
Alrighty. What we have here is the Nikon Buckmaster. It's a 6x18x40. You can see guns unloaded. I've got it here. This is a Sako Vixen. It's in 223. The scope here comes with a nice set of covers here. It's got a 3-inch sunshade. It said 1-inch tube, 18 power, nice and adjustable here, pretty easy going. Also comes with a set of target turrets you can put on there that are exposed. I don't have them on there at the moment, obviously, because this is kind of a hunting rifle. We use it for target shooting, for shooting coyotes, that kind of stuff. All in all, I've been really happy with the scope. I've used it quite a bit. I've had it on this gun, which is rather light recoiling. I've also had it on a 300 Win Mag. I deer-hunted with that quite a bit. Shot several deer over 250 with it. I took a coyote at 350 with it. So really reaches out there and performs a long way. For a 40mm scope, I've been pretty happy with it. Does pretty well collecting light. Sunshade helps when it's real sunny. I have the mil-dot reticle in there. On the side, it's got a parallax adjustment, which is really nice. If you don't know what those are, they help you with focusing at the different ranges that are marked on there. The other reason you want to always use those, if you have time to set them up, when you look through a scope, if you move your head around a little bit, you'll notice that your reticle will move a little bit. By setting your parallax adjustment right, that helps minimize that and will make your gun actually more accurate. All in all, eye relief on it's pretty nice. I think it's a little over 3 inches. I have the mil-dot reticle in there. One downside with this, and you're going to get that on a lot of these cheap scopes, that is not a milliradian.
Can you zoom into that?
Turret on that, which is not a big deal, but if you were trying to dial in for doing target shooting, that can be a little bit of an issue. Not going to hold you back, but something you need to be conscious of. A few more calculations you have to do if you're going to try to dial your targets. For me personally, I like to just carry a drop chart. When I had this on my 300, I carried a drop chart for 12 power and 18 power, because with a second reticle plane scope like this, your drops on any, not just in the mil-dot, on any of the BDCs, any of those type of scopes, your ranges for your drops will change with your different magnifications. So it is nice to carry a chart so you know those, or you're going to have to memorize it for a couple different magnifications, or never change your magnification, which is kind of defeats the purpose of having a scope that can adjust. The low side on it only goes down to 6 power, which isn't super low if you're walking in the woods, but if you're a competent shooter and you're comfortable shouldering a rifle and bringing it up on a target, it's not going to be a problem for you.
I think putting on one of these, the gun like this though, you could always get raised, because this does have iron sights. You could get raised.
I like to keep them fairly low, and actually it's set a little bit lower on the other gun. The reason I like to do that, the closer it is to the barrel, the more precise your drops and stuff are going to be. I usually suggest people do that. The only reason you wouldn't want to do that is if, like, we have a friend Greg who he's a tall guy, so he has a rather tall head. The problem he was having is that with the low rings, he had to do a weird angle on his cheek. So for him, it was actually beneficial to raise the scope up, so it was in a more natural firing position for him.
Yeah, if you're running that, like on this 223, a lot of you get smaller 223 for kids and stuff. They have iron sights, and kids are generally, they prefer iron sights at closer range because they're not fully, fully adjusted to scopes. They don't understand scopes fully, so it is nice that you can still run raised, since it doesn't go down to any lower than 6.
The scope, I paid $270 for it. Generally, they are $300 at Midway. I think that's the only place that offers them the 6x18. You can get them in the lower models, the 4x12s, the 3x9s and stuff anywhere. But this is, my understanding is a Midway exclusive, which is where I got it from. I got it on sale. A lot of times you can find a coupon if you're willing to wait a little bit and save a little bit of money on it. But in this price range, these are really hard to beat. It's not a Leupold, it's not a Zeiss, it's not any of the high-end stuff.
I guess Nikon makes the lenses for
Yep.
it. Or...
Well, the majority of your lenses are all made in the same place in the world. The people put a lot of emphasis on where the lenses are made, but for the most part, they're all pretty close.
Well, Zeiss's are made in Germany.
But almost everyone else, other than the
Southeast
couple,
Asia.
or Southeast Asia. Yep.
Yeah. Like Philippines and things like that. I think this is made in the Philippines, right?
That would be my guess. The coatings on the lenses is usually what's the big difference. And these are okay. They've got decent fog lenses on them. I've never had a real problem with them fogging up. If you breathe into them, usually they clear in a couple seconds, even when it's real cold.
How does it handle vibrations? Since you did have it on a larger gun, did you ever have problems with it getting bumped off center or anything like that?
No, I've never. And then my 300, obviously, that's a heavy recoiling gun. Never had any problems with it. Always held center. That was on that gun for 4 years, and I don't think I might have adjusted it a hair here and there a few times, but for the most part, never any problems. And then definitely on something like this, light recoil, you're never gonna have any problems, even if you ran a much cheaper scope.
It's something that nobody ever wants to happen, but I don't know if you've ever had happen. It always seems to happen to everybody. Did you ever drop the gun even just a few feet with it and never have it knock off center?
I mean, it's been no.
Okay.
But I mean, it gets banged around a little bit. It spends a lot of time on my back going through the woods, climbing up deer stands. It gets banged a little bit, putting it in the truck and stuff. I'm generally careful with my stuff, but they do get banged around. Rings are a big thing. The original rings I put on here, I tried to use the rings from the 50s and mount the scope, which mounted fine once, but when I went to take them off, I had to drill them out, which was not fun when you're drilling extra scope. And on an older gun, you don't want to tear them up. So if you're going to mount a new scope, put new rings on them.
Yeah, rings are cheap. It's easy to lap them. And it's not that big of a deal unless if you have a Ruger. Rings are what, $15 usually.
40 to 50.
Oh,
I like to run the loophole rings.
Ones, yeah.
So I don't don't think are loophole rings. I say that, but on my nicer guns, yeah, these are Weaver style. I like to run the dual dovetail loophole rings, and I think they're 35 to 40 somewhere in there. But in the grand scheme of things, when you spend a lot of money on a scope and a gun, don't let cheap rings be the reason why your gun doesn't perform well.
Yeah, because you get those cheap rings, the Bass Pro brand, whatever their brand is, they tend to the worm screws back out, things like that.
I like to put Loctite in there. That'll help too. What I recently got,
green, red, or blue.
I got one of the. I don't know what. I think I'm running blue in it.
Blue is the better one.
Okay.
Green, you're not getting out with. I think green, you're not getting out with the torch.
I recently got a Wheeler mounting kit to make sure you mount your reticle level in it, which I was real happy with.
Does it come with a lap?
No, though. They make a lap, but no, I did not get. They did not come with the kit I got, and it sits on top of the action. It's got a bubble level, and then you put one out here to match it, and then once you mount the scope, put the scope on there, you put the level up here, and then level them all out, and you have a level crosshair. I've mounted a lot of scopes before using that, and after getting that, I realized I probably never had one that was truly perfectly level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a $30 investment, but I feel like it was worth it for me. And if you have a couple guns and you're going to mount very many scopes at all, it's a worthy investment. Because I picked up a lot of guys' guns over the years, and let me look at your gun, look at the scope, and they're canted.
Yeah. Is there anything that you don't like about this for the price range? Like, is there anything you've seen in this price range on a scope that's better? That would kind of steer you towards a different scope.
You can save some money if you don't want the higher magnification. I was looking for something pushing 20 magnification. That's how I ended up with the 6x18. I think my uncle just recently bought the same scope, and he got on sale for like 140 in the 4x12, which same glass, all that stuff. I really like that scope too, but you're gonna pay a little bit more for the high magnification. In that price range, I really haven't seen anything. And I've shot a lot of loopholes. I have a couple. I would put this up there with probably the $500 loophole glass. I'm not saying it's as good, but you're not really going to notice a difference, and you're saving a lot of money. For the magnification, if you just want a 3x9 power, you can get a loophole VX3 in about this price range. But if you want this kind of magnification, it's a good.
So this is a scope that you would recommend for pretty much anybody who's looking at a scope in this price range.
If you're looking for a scope you can do some distance shooting with that's not a 30mm tube, once you step in the 30mm tubes, your price goes way up. But yes, this is a great scope for the price. Anything deer hunting wise, if you're going to take any shots over 200, it's nice having the magnification. You can zoom in close, look at the deer. So yeah, definitely a good buy in my eyes. Had it for 5 years now, and I've loved it.
Okay. And I don't know if you didn't show these off too much. This is the sunshade on it. It's aluminum, I'm pretty sure most of them are. A few of them are plastic, I think.
I've never had a plastic one. I think there are some out there.
Yeah.
The one downside, and Drew pointed this out, it doesn't necessarily look real pretty with the scope because the scope lines don't line up on it. If I can get it right back in there. But anyways, you'll see it doesn't line up.
Which
isn't functionality-wise, it doesn't really matter if you're building a real pretty gun.
That, and if you're 2 feet away, you don't notice it. I've seen this scope on 3 different guns. dozens of times, and I didn't even notice it until Drew pointed it out because I'd never gotten out and taken a close look at it. So I mean, it's not something that's extremely obvious, but you know, for OCD people, it might be a problem. And your caps, they do fit both on with the sunshade on and off. They are adjustable.
Yep. They stretch quite a bit. They're not quite as tight as they used to be because I stretch them out over the sunshade a lot. But yeah, they're not gonna fall off. They're not see through. Might be a big deal for you, might not. I don't use them too much other than when it's in the case.
Now, one thing, this is not is the scope without the sunshade threaded on both ends, or because I know some of them, some of the Leopolds I think are threaded on both ends.
They're not threaded on the backside.
Yeah, so you can use both so you can use the screw-on flip-up caps.
These do not do that.
But you could at least run the flip-up cap.
I've never run the flip-up caps on the scope or on any of mine because, again, I try to mount the scope as close as possible, and I've had problem with clearance, especially on. This used to be on a Remington 700, and I had some problems with bolt clearance.
Yeah,
so that was an issue with. That's why I never put pop-up rings on.
I like the pop-up ones personally. I like to hunt thick brush, so that's something that I look for personally, and that that might be something you all look for if you hunt somewhere that's thick brush, is those pop-up rings. So, and I think you can get slip-on.
Lots of companies make slip-on ones.
There's lots of different ones out there, but that is just something to think about. But you could use screw-on ones that just look like standard threads. So you could use one of the threaded ones in the front.
One thing to consider if you're mounting a new scope, and I didn't do it on this one, but on my other gun I do have it, is a bubble level. If you're going to do any target shooting at all, they're cheap. They're like $30, and they'll mount onto the tube there, and it gives you a good reference if you're trying to shoot off the ground, especially if you're doing anything where you're dialing in a drop or shooting anything past where your gun's zeroed at. If that gun's canted at all, you're going to start pulling your shots. And it may be an inch, it may be 3, 4, 5 inches, depending on how much you've canted and how much you're shooting. So that is a really good investment on anything you're going to target shoot in my opinion.
I don't know if the lower magnification scopes, whether would this scope would you be able to run it on something like an SKS where you have to mount it off to the side? I mean, without going into like a pistol scope or anything.
On like an assault rifle or something like that, I don't. This is not a scope I would put on something like an SKS. It's not an accurate gun. You're not shooting for distance. Yeah. On an AR, I think it'd be fine if you're trying to reach out there and shoot a long way, predator hunting, stuff like that. And then anything you're mounting a scope off to the side. I do have a 30-30 that's got a scope mount off the side. It's functional, but they're not. It's never ideal when you don't have.
I didn't know if
stuff
any of
lined
the
up.
lower power ones would be able to do that. Which I know generally you want to run a pistol scope when you're doing that for the most part.
Or you can run on assault rifle something like an SKS. I would run like a 3x9 or something, or maybe a 2x7, so you can get down low. Because ideally that's a close range, not a long distance accuracy gun. So high magnification wouldn't be, in my opinion, what you'd want on something like that.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. This has been another Outdoor Cast Review.